Hey, welcome back to another episode of the WhizzbangBAM podcast. I'm your host, Brad Goodall. Today, with us in the kitchen, on the podcast, local legend, DJ, disc jockey, vinyl and digital, compressed MP3s, and the warmest of all vinyl, deep cuts, shallow cuts, Charlie Brown superstar. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
Let's go right into that. You bring vinyl to the gigs?
I used to.
Used to?
I'm one of the guys that have converted over to digital format now. It's,
Okay.
Saves my back at this point.
Yeah, you don't have to lug all that stuff into the minivan or whatever you drive. I don't know if you drive a minivan. I would love to drive a minivan.
I used to drive a minivan when I played vinyl.
Yeah, you got rid of the vinyl, went to MP3s, and now you drive a smart car. Is that right?
Nah, not necessarily, but close enough.
Right, I got you. What have you been up to, man? What are you working on at home? Like, what are you listening to?
It's
a broad question. You can pick any one thing. It's fine.
I listen to a lot of older electronic, a lot of older disco, and I when I make my own music, I dig through stuff and sample, and a lot of times I'll make a track out of one sample and just wear it into the ground.
Sure.
So I listen to a lot of older stuff. I listen to a lot of newer house music, and I've always been a big post-punk fan.
Post-punk. Give me some house DJs, because I'm seeing a lot of trending stuff about garage. Is that like UK garage house music? Have you heard of this?
Well, what I know of garage, or garage as they would call it, was from the 90s, and it was stuff like Basement Jacks and it had like a. It was also kind of called two-step for a while. It had like a little stutter beat to it.
Okay.
And I know it's evolved since then, but I don't
know exactly. I don't know the lineage enough to know. All I know is I'm seeing a lot of #garage in all of my feeds. So that must be the new bubbling up house subgenre.
Came back around.
Right now.
It's been almost 25 years, so why not?
Yeah, so you were around for when that stuff was probably originally bubbling, I'm assuming. All I know is I'm seeing that all the time. But I mean, if you had to say exactly where you fit in, it's probably pulling a lot of stuff from what? Disco and funk, maybe?
Disco, funk. I do play house music.
Sure.
I tend to call what I play more in the range of like a modern disco. It's more like mid-tempo, 110 to 120 beats per minute.
That's the sweet spot, baby.
Yeah. I like a lot of noodly xylophone bells and xylophones and keys and stuff like that.
Right. Is there one artist in particular you found where it's just like, oh yeah, I can go to this guy anytime I need to like reset during a set? Is there like some go-tos that it's just like, oh, this guy, he can pull me out of this?
Well,
besides September by Earth, Wind and Fire. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, there is. With some of our recent sets, when I'm playing a set like that, there's an artist named Mudina.
Yeah.
And but not to sound too, I don't know, pretentious would be the word, but
yeah, this is inside baseball
one of
talk.
the things that drew me to him was I was listening to his stuff getting ready for a show, and I was like, man, that kind of sounds like stuff I make. And I got really excited. And I was like, so I have a bunch of his stuff that I like, that I play, and it definitely is
it's a go-to.
It's a go-to for
sure.
It's
a set staple. Mm-hmm. How long you been DJing? When did you get started? That's the question.
I got started in February of 1994.
February? You remember the month?
I remember the month.
Remember what time of day it was?
It was probably around 10 o'clock at night, I would guess.
February, huh? What was the impetus, the catalyst?
I was an art student at Marshall.
Okay.
And I worked at MUL. And
nice.
Friends with the music director at the time, who worked at a local club at the time called Gumby's, which, if anybody's spent any time in Huntington, they usually know the name Gumby's was the live music venue.
Okay.
And he was also an art major. One day we were talking in class, or maybe the radio station, and I was like, hey, I might like to see what it's like to play at Gumby's if there's any openings. And he said, no, they're not really right now. About 6 months later, he calls me up and says, you still want to play at Gumby's? And I was like, yeah, man. He's like, can you be here at 10 o'clock?
I knew that's how that story was going to end.
Yep.
Yeah, your first gig is always like a happenstance kind of thing.
When I never had even tried to do that.
How did it go? Your first time never doing it?
It went okay. I mean, it wasn't me. I didn't just jump on the turntables and start cutting it up or anything. That guy was kind of like, it was his night. There was an opening, brought me down, kind of like just was quizzing me on music and like what would you play next and that kind of stuff.
Okay, I got you.
I guess I passed the test and
I
started my regular gig there.
Your little
next week.
An audition at Gumby's.
Gumby's.
You passed the bar at Gumby's. Mm-hmm. Good for you. Mm-hmm. So how long you been doing it? That was, you said February of 19.
It'll be 28 years.
Wow, good for you.
In February.
Got any like highlight gigs where it was like super excited to play, everything just worked out, just super memorable stuff?
Well, there's a lot of them. I mean, I had that almost a decade over at the V Club doing that Monday night, and that was always it was always fun to play.
That's a long run. 10 years every single Monday?
Every Monday.
For 10 years? Did you miss any of them? Mm-mm. You didn't miss one gig for 10 years?
I one time had a pretty high fever and still went in and was real grumpy. And guy made a request and I got just gave him what for and went into the back because I was basically transitioning to mixing into a song, going into the back, sitting on the stairs with my just
my head
in my hands.
Convalescing your fever back there.
And then I realized I was way too harsh on that guy. And I went back and called him off. I was like, man, I'm sorry, I'm just not feeling well.
Right.
I'll play your song in the next like 2 songs or whatever.
So you did like the Beatles thing, but for DJing. I would like to do that once, just to play one place for like a really long time. Mm-hmm. And like, I think the Beatles did it was like 4 sets a night or something for like a year or something like that. I've never had a routine gig where it was like, that's what I do every single week. Mm-hmm. It's got to be a good training ground, right?
It's good. I mean, that's not even when I've probably 3 or 4 years into really getting serious about DJing, I did a year of 7 straight days a week I was the resident DJ at a club. All these clubs are long gone. But it was actually called Gyrations. And
great name for a club.
And then these same guys that owned a bar named the Stone Monkey, and I played Tuesday through Saturday at Gyrations, Sunday and Monday at Stone Monkey. I did that for a year, and then I was like, I need some time off. I'm starting to burn out a little bit, and they're like, okay. So then I did 5 nights a week for about 6 months, and then like 6 nights a week for 2 years after that. So I mean, it was a lot of learning on the job.
You're the hardest working DJ in the world, I think. I can't imagine playing 7 shows a day. I mean,
a week.
A week. Sorry. A week. I don't think a vocal could keep up with doing that much performing, but that really is incredible. That's commendable.
A lot of on the job training, like I said.
Yeah.
You got and a lot of those nights were me and the bartender, so I just got to practice and experiment.
I love that idea. That's what I mean. I feel like I still need some of those types of gigs where it's just like I want to do just stuff that's not high pressure, just so I can kind of like iron out the creases of like what I want to do. It's kind of difficult to go from just rehearsing in a living room or a rehearsal space and jumping right into like, okay, now you're playing 600 cap clubs or whatever, and everybody's there ready to see it.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff is nice. If I could go back, I would do exactly what you did. Maybe a little bit less. I don't think I worked that hard.
My liver probably wishes I wouldn't have done that. But it was cool because when I really started to get into it, when I first started, I was just not mixing or anything. It was just song, fade out, song, fade out.
Yeah.
And then when I really started to take the art form seriously and get my own style, and because of my background and I've always played in live music venues as well as just like dance clubs.
Right.
And I started thinking, I really want to, I love the way like I mix house music and it's just a never ending blend with some, if you do it right, it almost sounds like one song, like a 6 hour, of one song.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd like to take that but do that with songs that people don't really think you would necessarily dance to.
Yeah.
And a lot of like classic rock and indie rock and things like that, or as I said before, post punk. And then you can even, a lot of times what I do now is like I edit them, make my own remixes of those things.
Sure.
But back then I was just taking like the original record and mixing it with like a house record on those off nights and just seeing what I could do.
Right.
And
Just sliding the faders into where they kind of blend. It's all about BPM matching and key, I guess,
it's
right?
A lot of that.
Once you
and,
have-
and phrasing is very important.
Yeah, I could see how if one record's too cluttered, it needs another record that's kind of empty to mesh. If both arrangements are super stacked, it's going to be a little clogged up, I'm imagining, right?
Yeah, and you want the especially if you're mixing different genres. It's a little easier if you're mixing within the same genre. But you want the cymbal crashes to hit at the same time. You want
Right.
you don't
Totally.
You don't want it to miss. If you come in too late, you're gonna have like the one song's like a cymbal crash, and then 3 seconds later another cymbal crash.
I gotcha.
It's not.
It can wear the years out. I take DJs for granted sometimes until I hear maybe somebody who's just getting started, and you're just out there dancing, it's going like this, and then you're like, you can just, the BPM shifts are just real chaotic, and you can feel people kind of lose the energy out of their shoulders and being like, I was having a good time for 4 minutes and now I'm like confused, and it takes them like 15 seconds to like recalibrate to the new song. Yeah, like when you're a good DJ, almost like it just fills the space and you don't even like notice how much work is going behind the thing, like behind the scenes. But when it's bad or it's not working, it can definitely suck the energy out of a club for sure.
Oh yeah, you can always tell. People notice more when I make a mistake than if I go.
Yeah.
There's been
If you have a great set, no one says anything.
Yeah, there's been nights where I'm like, back when we used to have DJ booths, I'd be patting myself in the back and be like, that was
clean.
stellar.
Clean
I'm
transition.
Going down and waiting for my victory parade, and no one would say a word. And then,
They're not saying a word because they're too busy dancing and having a good time.
At the end of the night. And then like other nights, I'm just like, we call it like shoes in a dryer or train wrecks all night. And then those are nights people are like, man, that was incredible. And you're like, really?
Yeah.
Were you listening? But
Yeah, the greatest compliment for a DJ, getting no compliment at all.
no, you're just in the background. And
You're in the background and they're sweating it up on the checkerboard dance floor.
Yep.
Dude, well, thank you for stopping by. Charlie Brown's Superstar, everybody. Thank you, man.
Thanks, guys.